Good evening, darlings, and welcome to yet another video request. So tonight I'm going to be discussing a rather more serious topic than normal. I've received an anonymous question, which probably would be best to answer on Greenwood Talks, but I've run into many people who have been going through the same issue, particularly recently. I've had a few people ask me some similar advice, and so I thought perhaps I should just go ahead and address it right away. So I do have other videos that I'm working on this weekend, but of course I wanted to get to this one straight away because I think it's a rather important thing for several reasons. So I'd like to apologize ahead of time for anyone who is watching this and actually wants the advice, because of course I'm just one individual, and this is of course just my personal way of dealing with this, darling. So there are many ways, and this may not be the best way for you, and if that's the case, then by all means don't give up hope, just ask someone else. So let's just dive in, shall we? The anonymous person says, "I don't know if you're the best person to ask because you are so incredibly beautiful." Darling, you know how to start a message. But how can I, as someone who often thinks of themselves as hideous, boost my self-esteem? Now, there is more, darling. It's not that I didn't read it, I just thought that was a little personal, so I wouldn't mind discussing that with you just one-on-one, darling. You can, of course, send me your email, and we will never discuss this in public, but those are some rather heavy topics that you put afterwards, and I am quite touched, of course, that I could be the exception to the rule for you there. So thank you again so much, darling, and I'm glad that you enjoyed all the videos. So to get back on topic, because of course I'm very prone to going off on tangents, aren't I, darlings? So I think the first thing to remember is that everyone, of course, has moments where they don't feel very confident and where they feel ugly. Even the most beautiful person has moments where they will feel self-conscious about that. Even the greatest narcissist has a moment or two where they will wonder if they are truly as beautiful as they are, even if they are that self-obsessed, darling. But that is a whole nother discussion. So yes, sometimes even I know I seem perfect, and darling, a lot of the time I do believe that full-heartedly through hard work, but I do have my scars, some quite literal, and I hide them very well, but I do have moments where I do feel a bit of sort of self-doubt, even about my appearance. So what I normally do when that happens, of course, darling, is to have a few glasses to drink, which, of course, I understand in your situation is not an option. And, of course, there are many out there of you who don't drink for one reason or another, whether it's health and you can't, or religious reasons. There are many reasons why you cannot drink to deal with that, and that's probably healthier, honestly, darlings, but you know, I run off of the stuff. So to get back onto target here, so things you can do, of course, I suggested this in one of my earlier videos. I believe the first episode of Greenwood Talks, I talked about just looking into the mirror and telling yourself how perfect you are, because, darling, just as I said before, you are, and I can tell from the way that you're writing that you have a beautiful heart and a wonderful, gorgeous soul, and you are a very sensitive person, and I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean that in an absolutely beautiful way. And so I hope that you can look into that mirror and look beyond the parts that you think don't look as attractive and see your true self, which of course is you are stardust, darling, and you are made of power. Now, it's very hard to think of yourself on such a large scale, but of course, darlings, we all are, and we all have secret power hidden within ourselves if we can figure out how to sort of tap into the energy. So a lot of times people talk about you can't do something unless you believe in yourself, and I think that's sort of tied together, honestly. Um, there are times where I feel rather down, and I find that when I'm not feeling very good, um, a lot more negative things happen. And I've heard this is because you tend to perceive them more readily, and that things that normally you would just think of as sort of odd or just unfortunate but not life changing can seem like the most dreadful thing ever. You know, you can drop something on the floor and burst into tears if things are not going so well in your life. Um, not saying that that's personally happened to me, of course, darlings. It's not like I suffer from any issues like that. I'm just saying, darlings, I've heard of these sorts of things. And so, of course, when you are in a mood like that, everyone has different things that help to sort of lift their spirits, so to speak. And so I find that for me personally, and of course, darling, it could be different from you. But for me personally, I find a little bit of a dance tune does a lot. I'm very, how shall we say, affected by the music that I listen to. And so if I'm listening to a lot of very upbeat music, even if I'm in sort of a shite mood, it does, after a little while, start to sort of bring me up. And of course, it's very important if you're feeling rather down to surround yourself with people with positive energy. If you've ever noticed a group of people who are rather depressed, they tend to sort of stay that way. And I'm not saying to abandon your friends who suffer from anxiety or depression. I'm just saying when you're feeling down, of course, darling, it's not the worst idea to make sure that what's surrounding you is something that's positive, because of course we do react to what's going on around us. And so if you are feeling in that sort of mood, just let any of your friends, family, or anyone around you know that you're in a bit of a mood, and that it's nothing personal. You know, it's not them, that it's just you need a few things to sort of get yourself where you need to be, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. um, it's actually the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. So when I feel particularly down, of course I try to cheer myself up with a bit of positive music. Sometimes I'll look through some photos. You know, my son sends me some of the most adorable photos while he's away at college, and so that really it always brightens my day, no matter how terrible it is. If I get his message, it just lightens my whole day. So if you have someone in your life that sort of always has a way of just bringing you up, um, I would say try to reach out to them. There's no shame in asking for help. It takes a much stronger person to ask for help than to just sort of flounder around on their own, hoping for the best. So I don't know if any of this is very helpful. If you have an ongoing issue with self-esteem, um, I will tell you that a lot of my friends, what they have done or told me that has worked for them is, of course, the 5 things you are grateful for. So before you go to bed every evening, just come up with 5 things that have happened during the day that you were grateful for. And this can be anything simple. It could be just that you were grateful that you got to see that lovely sunset, or you were so grateful that it didn't rain today. You know, it can be something quite small, darling, that, you know, you got a little extra cheese on your sandwich or something. It doesn't have to be anything huge. Just when you do that over time, it actually changes your outlook to a more positive one. And I find that that does a lot for your self-esteem. And of course, eating good food, getting proper nutrition is also very important to our mood, as well as, of course, getting enough vitamin D, which means sun exposure, as long as, of course, you don't have any skin conditions that prevent that. So, darlings, I hope this was helpful for you, Anonymous, and also anyone out there who is going through any similar moments in their life. And, you know, just do something that makes you feel as beautiful as you are, darling, because you are. So if you want to discuss anything further with me again, just send me a message. I will send you my email and we can talk further. So, ciao, darlings, and have a pleasant evening.